Alright, so let's get in a little more practice with using effects and the appearance panel. What we're going to create here is a simple emblem, so-called simple emblem, and we're going to use a lot of different effects and things we've been learning with the appearance panel and things that we've previously learned. To save some time, I put most of the assets for this emblem right over here just to make the demo go a little bit faster. But at this point, most of you should know how to create these things individually using the Pathfinder panel, the pen tool, your shapes, and the transformations like offsetting a path and adjusting those anchor points. So here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to take this large shape first and we're going to apply some appearance attributes to this. I'll go ahead and move this over here so it is right next to our emblem. And I just created this with an ellipse and a hexagon that I stretched out, and I just merged them together using the shape builder tool. Okay, so looking at this, it looks like we have two strokes. We have a dark stroke on the outside and a light stroke on the inside, and then we also have a fill in the middle. I'll go ahead and open my appearance panel and we can get started with that. So on the first part, the stroke on the outside, so I'll click stroke to the outside and I will increase the stroke weight to about 10, and that'll be good. And let's add another stroke, and this one will be aligned to the inside, and I'll go ahead and change that to a white color, and I'll bring the stroke weight down on that to about 7. Let's go ahead and change the fill color. So I'll change it to one of these darker grays, and that should be good for that container. The other thing I need to add, it looks like it has another dashed stroke along the inside edge. So what I'm going to do is just offset this path, and I'll have a nice vector path to put in that dashed stroke. So with that selected, I'll go to Object, Path, and Offset Path. Go ahead and preview that. And I'll go ahead and offset that by a minus 0.2 inches and click OK. And I'll take off the fill on this new path, and I'll change the stroke attributes. So I'll actually just click this black stroke on here and delete it, and I'll change the white stroke to align to the center. I'll decrease the stroke weight to about 3, maybe 2, and now I can go ahead and put on a dashed line. So for this dash, I'll do 8 for the dash, 6 for the gap, and I'll round out the caps. And I'll make sure that the alignment to the corners is on, so that right here, this corner doesn't have that awkward transition. And that will be good for the border on that container. I'll go ahead and select both of those shapes and group them, Command G, and I'll move on to the next asset that we need to put in here. Let's go ahead and grab this group, this 2 words, community college, and we need to apply an effect to each one of these to get this shape to it, or this. So I'll go ahead and start with the first word, community, and I can either go through the appearance panel or I can go up to effects. For this one, I'll go through the appearance panel, and I'll go through warp, and I'll choose arc upper, and I will bring the bend down into the negative direction. I'll do about -10. Click and click the preview. Alright, I like that. And click OK. And I'll click on the next word, college. And I know that those effects are already loaded, so I'll just choose the arc upper, and now I will change the bend in the other direction. Excuse me, I need to choose arc lower. And I can always come back and modify this, but for now, that's good. All right, now I'll group these, Command G, and I'll arrange it to the front. Arrange, bring to front, and I'll put this right on top. Maybe I'll nudge this over a little bit with my arrow keys. It's looking good. So I'll go ahead and put in this mini emblem we have established in 1901, and I'm going to go ahead and apply an effect to this group of words. I'll just go up to Effect, Warp, and I'll try the bulge effect. So I'm going to bow this outward so it kind of matches the contours of this ellipse. 20% will do, and I'll click OK. And the other thing this needs is it needs this zigzag pattern on the outside. So I will go ahead and make a copy of one of these. I'll just choose this gray ellipse in the center, Command C, Command Shift and V, and I will hold down Alt and Shift and expand that out. And I'll go ahead and arrange it to the back. So arrange, send to back, and it looks like I need to kind of modify this a little bit more. So I'll hover over the middle part, hold down on the Alt key, and now if I move this center part, it moves the bottom part as well. All right, with that selected, I will choose Effect, Distort and Transform, and Zigzag. Get a preview of what that's going to do. All right, so that's roughly what I want to do. I'll bring down the size a little bit and start adding some ridges. So I'll bring down the size to about 0.05, and I'll add quite a number of ridges. I want it to kind of bend across this angle. So I'll try something like 40. I'll click OK, and I'll go ahead and change the color, change it to white. Alright, so now it looks like it's kind of bursting out. Alright, so I'll go ahead and do a marquee selection of that and group it, Command G, and now I can move this into place. And now that I look at this, I want to actually scale this dash line down. So I'll select it, hold down on my Alt and Shift key, and see if I can pull that in just a little bit more. Let's turn off the Smart Guide. So Command U, and I'll try that again. Shift and Alt, pull that in. Forgot that that's grouped. So I want to go ahead and move in this dashed line a little bit more. So I'll click on that group and then double click, and then I'll access that dashed line. Hold down on the Alt and Shift, and I'll pull that in a little bit. I turned off my Smart Guides to make that a little bit easier, give it a little more breathing room, and then I'll hit the Escape key when I'm done with that. Alright, I'm going to come over here, okay, to this small little pictographic illustration, and I'll make sure that's in the front. So I'll go Arrange and Bring to Front, and I'll drag this one over here. And I want to see if I can match the contours. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. And it looks like I need to actually nudge this word college up a little bit more. So I'll click on that group, double click inside the group, and find that object. And if I look in my appearance panel, I can see that I have an effect applied to it, the warp arc lower. So I'll double click on that, and I get back into my warp options. And here is where I can fine tune that a little bit more. Alright, I'll do a negative 18. And then I'll hit the Escape key to get out of there. Alright, before we move on to the ribbon, let's do this icon of the pen tool. I can see from the template that it is cut off here at the bottom. So I could go through and start trying to recreate that cutoff, or I could just create a clipping mask. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this dashed line and use it as a window for a clipping mask. So I'll double click inside the group, and then I'll click on that dashed line. I'll hit Command C to copy it, press the Escape key, and then I'll click outside, and now I'll do Command V to paste that, and I'll go ahead and change the stroke to a regular stroked line, and I'll kind of move up here so it's easier to see, and I'll move that into place, and now I can move this pen tool right over that. So with this shape in front, okay, I can select both of these, right click, and go to Make Clipping Mask. And there you can see they cut it off right at that same angle that I want. I'll go ahead and double click inside that mask and click on the pen tool. I'll just drag that down just a little bit more so you can't see that edge right about there. And while I'm inside this isolation mode, I'm going to go ahead and create some of these stylized profile lines here on the side. So I'll just use my line segment tool, and I'll click once, and I'll click and drag a line going up this way, and I'm just trying to roughly match this edge over here. And you can see it's getting cut off by the clipping mask, which is good. That's the effect I'm going for. I'm going to go ahead and change the profile to this width profile 4, and I'll increase the size. So we're getting kind of like this spiked line. Let's try about 13. Okay, so now that I have that one line made, I want to go ahead and duplicate that. So I'm getting this repeating pattern. So I'll actually hold down on the Alt key, and I'll move this away, being aware of how it's moving. I'll let go of the mouse, let go of the Alt key, and then hit Command D a couple times. And there, that's kind of the effect I was going for. Now I'll go ahead and select all those lines I just made, and make sure to unselect the clipping mask. And with those selected, I'll do Command G to group them, and I'll go ahead and go to the reflect tool, and now I want to reflect and make a copy of those. So I got to make sure my Smart Guides are on. Smart Guides or Command U. I'll come right to this point, hold down on the Alt key and click, So yes, that's a good reflection, and I want to copy that. And I'll hit the V key when I'm done, and I'll hit the escape key to get out of isolation mode. So now I've moved that pin within a clipping mask, and I've also created those lines within that clipping mask. Now I can go ahead and move this into place. I'll offset it from the top a little bit right about here. Maybe I'll move that down just a little bit. That's about right. Alright, so we're almost done. Alright, so if I look at my template, I can see I have this ribbon shape here, and there's a little break in the shape here. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll start with this shape here. What I need to do is create an anchor point that I can move back into here. So I'll go ahead and go up to my pen tool, and now I'm going to go down to here, add anchor point tool. I'll find, the smart guides will find the center, and I'll click once. I'll hit A for my white arrow, and then I will move this back, holding down on the shift key, release, and click outside. That is complete. I can begin to warp this. Alright, so now that I've done that, I'm going to warp this part of the banner. So it's just a rectangle with some of these lines with a profile on them, and this I think is Futura font, and I just lined it up down the center. So I'll go ahead and select all that and make sure to group it, Command G, and it looks like I'm doing an arch effect on here. So I'll go up, actually I'll move this right over the top, so I can see in kind of real time how I'm affecting this. And right about, smart guides are lining that up. I'll go ahead and arrange that to the front. And with it still selected, I'll go up to Effect, Warp, and Arch. And I'm going to bend it in the positive direction. About 10% would be good. Just a subtle bend, click OK, and I'll move that down a little bit. I'm going to show some of those rolling hills a little bit more. Might even want to move these two groups of shapes up. Alright, we're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this end of the ribbon is a group, so it is, and I need to arrange that to the back. So I'll go Arrange, Send to Back, and I'm going to kind of line that up right there. And I want to have the effect of looking like the ribbon comes around and wraps back behind the container. I'll go ahead and just use my pen tool, and I'll use just a black fill and no stroke. Then I'll just kind of come in here, I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to find these edges to create that effect. Something like that. Zoom out to see how that's looking. Maybe I'll move this up a little bit more. So I'll use my black arrow. I'll move the arc ribbon up just a little bit more. That's too much. And I'll come back to that shape I made. I'll use the white arrow, and I'll kind of readjust the points. Alright, so last thing I need to do is select this new shape and select that end of the ribbon and make a reflection. I'll choose the reflect tool. I know that this is a midline, so I'll just hold down on the Alt key and click. And yes, I need to make a copy, and I will arrange this ribbon to the back. And it looks like I have some issues with the orientation on this. I'll actually just kind of move this over and readjust those points. Alright, and I'll select all of that and group it, Command G, and there we have it. An emblem made with all the tools that we have gone over. So do your best, try to get something that's close to what is on the template, and then see what you can do in your own projects for the logo design.